We humans have, over the 165,000 years of human history, but particularly in the last 10,000 years, we've lived in two kinds of worlds. We've lived in hunting-gathering worlds, and we've lived in agricultural worlds. And for a hunter-gatherer, if you're going through the forest looking, or the jungle, or whatever it may be, looking for lunch, if you're constantly scanning your environment, looking around, you're more likely to see, you know, hey, there's that rabbit over there that's going to be lunch, or that bear over there that's going to make me its lunch. So this is a survival skill. So that's the hunting-gathering. But in the agricultural world, you know, if you're constantly being distracted, and instead you're supposed to be picking bugs off plants hour after hour, day after day, week after week, month after month, it doesn't work, right? Or in a classroom, if you're noticing the insect walking across the ceiling instead of listening to the teacher, it doesn't work. So distractibility, number one, works in the hunter world, doesn't work in the farmer world. Impulsivity, making quick decisions. If you're chasing that rabbit through the woods and a deer comes by, you don't have time to sit down with a pad and a pen and say, let's do a risk-benefit analysis. Let's see, rabbit, less meat, easier to catch. Deer, more meat, hard. By that time, they're both gone, right? You've got to make a decision and, in fact, probably be acting on that decision before you even realize that you've engaged in a cognitive process. And behavior preceding awareness of cognition is literally the psychiatric dictionary definition of impulsivity. It works in the hunting-gathering world. In fact, again, it's a survival skill set. In the farming world, on the other hand, this is the kid who blurts something out before the teacher calls on him. This is the kid who, or the adult for that matter, who is engaging in a behavior without thinking it through, you know, and without going through that whole cognitive process. So in a farming world, ADD doesn't work as much. And then the need for high levels of arousal. In a hunting-gathering world, the person who's going to be the most successful, the most likely to pass along their genes and to succeed, is the person who gets up in the morning and says, you know, it sounds like fun. Let's go out there where there's things that want to eat me as much as I want to eat them and find lunch, right? Whereas the person who's highly risk-averse, who's afraid of taking risks, that person's going to go, hey, wait a minute, there's lions and tigers and bears out there. I'm just going to sit here at the cave and starve. Okay. Now, in a farming world, you wouldn't want somebody who needs stimulation. You'd want somebody who's just perfectly content to sit on the front porch and watch the wheat grow for 7 or 8 weeks before it's time to harvest it. Because if they were easily bored, they'd say, I'm out of here. You know, I'm going to go off to the big city or something. So my suggestion, back in 1980, I published the first paper in the Journal of Orthomolecular Psychiatry, and then in 92 I published ADD, A Different Perception, my first book on this, was that these differences were adaptive. I proposed that they were genetic. I proposed that they were probably associated not so much with serotonin, but more with dopamine, one of the neurotransmitters that is associated with arousal and sensory perception. And that in many cases, rather than dealing with these kids or adults with drugs, we could successfully fix their problem by changing their environment, by putting them in an environment that's more like a hunting environment rather than a farming environment, where there's change.